Hey, it's Chronologically Gaming, the only channel that's perpetually retro because we're playing every video game in order of release. The only way to experience the entire video game industry all over the world. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to 1981. We last left off with Othello for the Atari VCS. And we're going to press forward and play all the video games that were released at some point in 1981 in alphabetical order. Continuing with our next game. Yes, it's going to the handheld world. And this is Pac-Man by Tomytronic. Pac-Man! It's time for Pac-Man! And if Pac-Man doesn't sound familiar, well, Pac-Man certainly should. This is the Japanese release of Pac-Man for the Tomytronic, or a standalone handheld. Let's take a look at the artwork. Starting with the front of the box, Pac-Man by Tomytronic. There's a monster on the run, but Pac-Man will eat him before the game is done. And we flip it over on the back, you can see it's a game with lots of monsters and a mobile mouth. Also notice there's no hyphen in Pac-Man. So it's not a technically legitimate copy or using the license of Pac-Man. It's Pac-Man. So it's a totally different game, I guess. Oh, there we go. That makes sense. Now, in Japan, it was known as Pac-Man. Looks more official that way, at least in Japan. And then there's the example of the system itself. A small system, about the size of your hand. And you can see we have different options for amateur or pro, turning it on and off, and then the controls for it. All right, let's put in the palm of our hand Pac-Man, released at some point in 1981 by Tomy, or Tomytronic. There we go. So for this handheld system, we're able to play these handhelds. I've been working really hard to make sure they work for us, and this one's really cool. This one has two different modes, amateur or pro. We'll stick with amateur since it's our first time playing it, but let's turn it on. There we go. They got the Pac-Man sound, so we're playing Pac-Man. At least it starts that way. And you see we have 4 directions to go through. And by the way, this dial pad I'm using, bear in mind that the directional pad by Nintendo hasn't been invented yet for a handheld. So we keep seeing iterations and close to the cross shape pattern of the direction, but it really hasn't come out yet. This is pretty darn close though. We can see we have 4 different directions to push on as I move around, and Pac-Man's there on the screen on the right side, but this one is a little bit clunky. If you notice that the dot on the side, I couldn't get it unless I was passing from the left to the right. And let's see if I get the star. Oh, did it work or did I die? Okay, I got him, and now another ghost is running away as red. It's a very, very small maze considering the other ones we've played. And Pac-Man's mouth is only facing to the left the entire time. So if you're moving backwards to pick up a dot, it doesn't work. You won't be able to get the dot. So if I move to the side, you can see I'll move up here. This dot I'll be able to pick up. But if I move back to the left and then work my way backwards, these 2 dots on the far left, I can't pick, it doesn't pick them up. You have to move to the left to pick up the dots. So it's sort of like playing Pac-Man, but it's not nearly as smooth. So we got all the dots on that round. It is giving us a score, which is awesome, but it does feel a little weird that Pac-Man always faces left. He can't turn right, or he can't look right. He only looks to that direction. But the power pellets work. They're represented by stars in this one. We have the fruit, too. The fruit worked. I got a higher score. It looks like 100 points for that one. Now, bear in mind, for handheld systems, this is still awesome, ahead of its time considering everything else we've seen. Most of the handheld games, the most impressive ones have been Galaxian ripoffs or Space Invaders ripoffs, like shooters. This is the very first time on the channel we've seen a maze game that you could have in the palm of your hand. Specifically, Pac-Man. Pac-Man on the palm of your hand. Or if you're in Japan, it'd be Pac-Man. But it plays pretty good, at least for the most part, as far as a handheld. Oh, the ghost got me that time. My guess is, yeah, it might be the memory that's keeping it only one direction. But essentially, they just said, get Pac-Man as a handheld. We don't care which direction he faces. We want the dots in there. We want the maze. Okay, it looks like I had game over. So 3 lives, then you're down. Let's check out Pro version and see how crazy it is. So switch into Pro. Let's turn it off and back on again. Get the classic Pac-Man sound. It still sounds good for the time. All right, let's see what looks like. About the same. Don't notice any difference right now. And you can see for the controls, as I'm moving and pushing the buttons around, it's giving me a slight lag. Like it's a little slow to move around, but I really can't fault it because it's a handheld where you're playing Pac-Man. It is in our hands. We can move and go wherever we want to with it. It's awesome. But can't really tell the difference between Pro. I'm doing just as well as I did before, but we only made it through one maze, and it is the same maze every single time. And it takes a while to get used to. You can only collect dots going or moving to the left than from the right side. You can walk over them, you just can't eat them. So Pac-Man doesn't eat from behind his back, or just doesn't turn around. Got me that time. Yeah, that's a good point. It can't. It actually seems like it should, because if you look at the screen, they always keep the same image in the background, and they only light up what needs to be lit up. It looks like it'd be wide enough to do both. So when you turn one direction, it looks like there should be a second Pac-Man that's facing the other direction, but no. You see how wide all the movement is? Like there should be another one, but there's not. Maybe it was an idea that they wanted to have, and then they... I'm just speculating. Maybe they just didn't finish programming that part. But even still, Pac-Man for the Tomytronic is one of the best handhelds we could play for the time. But we are playing everything in 1981 that we couldn't find a definite release date for. This is one of the Pac-Mans that we're going to be checking out. So for this one, of all the games we played at this point, it is one of the best. But it isn't the very best. It's okay. It's pretty good. But I'm going to go 4 stars for Pac-Man, the Tomytronic version of Pac-Man. It's an excellent game. It's not one of the best you could play, but it's definitely up there with 4 stars. Yeah, it says it's for the dots. At least it seems that way for this version. All right, so with that, let's move on and see what our next game is after Pac-Man. We're next going to the TRS-80 Coleco, and this is Packetman. Since we're going in alphabetical order with all these releases, it's going to be P's, or lots of Pac titles. So this one is not a lot of artwork for it. We're just going to pop in and play Packetman. Released at some point in 1981 for the TRS-80 Coleco. Thanks for the preface. We were kind of ready for that one. All right, so this one's machine language. That's funny. It's Pac-Man. Let's play some Pac-Man. Loading through machine language for the Coleco. Anytime we see man at the end, I'm just expecting a Pac-Man clone. All right, here we go. Pac-Man. Packetman by Greg Zumwalt. Way to go, Greg. So at some point in 1981, and I think we did pin this one down. I just showed up later, but we're in. The game booted by itself, and so cool. The joystick works right off the bat. Love it when that happens. Didn't have to do anything on the keyboard. Just push the button, and then we're in. We're going. The screen does not wrap around, but it is a single maze that seems like it should be larger, or it should scroll, but it does not. Sound effects are not Pac-Man. The music is not Pac-Man. It's Packetman. There we go. So that part wraps around, and then if you look at the top, this is almost like a trap. You get caught here, and the ghost will get you. And then they have long corridors. Oh, no. There we go. And then when you move to the center, look, you can get caught in the center, too. So they have almost like traps. Not as fair as Pac-Man, if you want to call Pac-Man fair. But, yeah, we already got them moving really fast. There's also no power-ups. I don't see any power pellets anywhere. So you're pretty much just moving around the maze, and then you just got to be smart enough to get away from the ghosts. And what's also interesting is I'm playing on a analog controller, but the analog, like this is me moving to the right, and I let off to the right. It feels very good for the controls. I stop, and it stops. And if I move a certain direction, then it keeps going. So I was expecting some drift, because we usually had that on the analog, but no, it actually feels pretty good. So play control feels all right for Pac-Man. Now, how in the world am I going to get in there without getting caught? Let's see. Oh, okay, so the dots in the center don't count. You just need to get the dots around the middle, because those dots in the middle, you don't need to eat those. That's where the ghosts come from. But same maze every single time, and this is it. This is Packetman. Man, we're playing so many games that I thought we had a lot of clones of Head-On, and I thought we had a lot of clones of Space Invaders, but no. This shows you how big Pac-Man was. We're seeing so many clones of Pac-Man. And this is another one wasn't even familiar with. So this is Packetman. Yeah, so it's still pretty good for the time. Now, considering all the other games we played up to this point, we've seen a lot better clones. Specifically, Ghost Chaser was insane. It was so good. But for this one, I would give it. If it was 1981 and I had the Coco, this would be a pretty good game. I don't know if I get as much enjoyment playing over and over with it, because it is only single player. So I'd still say it's a noble attempt, very good for the time. I'd go around 3 stars, maybe even 3.5, just slightly above average for a Pac-Man game. But we'll just stick with 3, so a perfectly average game considering every other game we've seen thus far. So there you go, that's Packetman for the Coco. Let's breeze forward and see what's next. Yeah, here we go. From one handheld to another, this is Packri Monster, or Pac Monster, depending on what region you're in. Let's take a look at Packri Monster. Starting with the front of the box, here is the Japanese front of the box, and I believe we can see this one in 3D. So in Japan, it was called Packri Monster. This is Bandai Handheld, or Handheld Electronics. And flip it over on the back, and you can see we have a handheld that looks very different than other handhelds. It actually is keeping a box or rectangular design. And the screen, though, looks really similar to the Tomy Pac-Man. At least it's giving you explanations of where everything is. Of course, it's in Japanese, but it's telling you where what you're seeing on your handheld and what it means. And then we also have other artwork for other regions. So if Packri Monster doesn't fit the bill, this would be what it was in Europe. So the joystick-controlled monster gobbles green food to score points. Monster must avoid being gobbled by Bogey. Bogey turns coward when monster eats red power food. Now, obviously, it's not exactly Pac-Man, but you bet it was sued because the handheld rights were for Coleco. So when this was released in other regions, they had to switch out the name and do a few things to make it not Pac-Man. And I think it was pulled from the shelves in the region that makes the region that will affect the license. So the challenge, gobble or be gobbled. You can see the back of the box too. So this gives you some explanation of what the game is. They still do the same description. Bogey turns coward. Bogey eats monster. Indicates the number of monsters remaining in the game, and then shows you the warp, how you can go left and right, so the screen will wrap around the other side. That's true, yes. Bandai Namco is together. Oh, they're just one big happy family. I don't know for sure. But for back then, no, everyone, man, there's so much competition, and this is where it's starting to get heated. We're in 1981, and when you get to 82, man, we have an explosion of clones and copies. Licenses are all over the place. It's going to be fun. The digital score readout before press and demonstration plays on the screen, and you also have a score, just like in the Tomitronic Pac-Man, and then explains the different things that you see on the screen. There it is. There's the system, Packri Monster. This is the Japanese system. And then we're going to be, I think, booting up and playing the European version, but it's all the same. And for the very first time on the channel, we have a manual for a handheld. Well, a standalone handheld. We've had some for the Milton Bradley Microvision. This is the first time for one game in your hand, you play it, because all the Game & Watches, we didn't have manuals for those. So this is the very first time a standalone handheld had a manual on the channel, and it's Packri Monster. Please read instructions carefully. I don't know how much we can get from a one game to play, but you got the power switch, the start key, the action joystick, which is an actual joystick that sticks up that you can use. And then it shows, that's what the Packri Monster is. A clear-looking glob, like a jelly from Dragon Quest, which hasn't existed yet. I'll pretend I didn't say Dragon Quest. Forget I mentioned that. Then we have foods that you got to eat, and then bogeys. They are the monsters attempting to eat it. The coward bogey. So wait, are we the... Yeah, we are the Packri Monster. Okay, sweet. So we are playing as, not Pac-Man, the Packri Monster. And then if you pick up a power pellet, you get one of the bogeys to turn into coward bogeys, and you can eat them up. And you can warp from one side to the left side, back and forth, just like in Pac-Man. And then the score points for everything. Got to know what those are, how many points you get for the coward bogeys are the most. If the points exceed 999 points, it will return to 0 and begin again. Be challenged to score over 1,000 points. Oh man, you go 1,000 points on Packri Monster. I think you need to go outside and play. Or maybe you were outside playing. Well, put Packri Monster down if you get to 1,000 points, kids. So how do you play? Packri Monster is a game you score points. Yep, get the food. If you get the red power food, the monster becomes capable of eating the bogey, allowing for higher points scored. Yeah, so it's just like Pac-Man. I'm trying to see if I find anything in the manual that gives us something new, because it looks like the pattern is exactly what we'd expect for Pac-Man. Looks like 3 monsters are eaten. The game will be completed if nothing's changed. So yeah, it does the same we've done before. It's the same maze, just keeps repeating, getting harder and harder. So for game sounds, oh nice. You have the game starting sound, monster eats the food sound, monster eats bogey sound. They got different sounds for each one. A variety of sounds. Okay, nice. And then what do you do about the fluorescent lamp indication? Oh, okay, yeah, so this is the vacuum fluorescent display, the VHD display, which we've seen with the other handhelds. The really cool Galaxian handhelds, they had the same display. And if you look here, this is all the different parts, what everything means on the screen, where the warp tunnel is. Got to know where that is. And then check this out. In the back of the system, 4 AA batteries to play this. In the future, you're going to power a handheld called the Game Boy that uses 4 AA batteries like this. Amazing. So there you go, the very first manual we had for a standalone handheld. Let's pop it and play Packri Monster, released at some point in 1981 by Bandai. All right, so you can see here we have the system is the Pac Monster system, but it's essentially the same thing. So let's flip it on, and it starts in an attract mode just like it's an arcade game. And then if we push the start button, now we push start and we're in. You can see the little joystick on the right side moving. Nice, they even have really good tunes that sound like Pac-Man. Even though it's Packri Monster, that was really close. I actually like this maze better than the one we played on the Tomytronic. And as you move around, yep, eat them up. Good, keep going. Yep, controls are pretty good. Get all the dots, then move on to the next maze. Keeps your score at the top. And you can go to the other side. You leave for just a sec, but then show up on the other end. Yeah, of the other handhelds we played, this one is much better. There also, it isn't an amateur or pro switch. I feel like this is too easy, or maybe I'm just doing well. No, wait, look, they have a cutscene. I'm not controlling it. They're doing a cutscene just like in Pac-Man. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. So first time we saw that on a handheld. Doing the best they can, and we were talking about the graphics. Now, these simulators, it's not really doing the same justice as if you were playing it yourself. If you get a chance to check these out, it's... I ran out. Once you collect the red dot, you only have so much time before you move on to the next one. But the way these glow when you look at them is, it is better than this. Got it. It's hard to indicate if you can keep going, or when you can eat them or not. Looks like one's about to come back. There we go. Yeah, so they come back to the center. Got it. And then we can finish them up here, and got it. Nice. Might be easier to get 1,000 points than I thought. I thought you'd be playing for a while. We're already at 486 and haven't even played that long. Maybe we can do 1,000. And then it looks like it's the same cutscene there. Nice. All right, there you go. That's Packri Monster. Released at some point in 1981. Now, the reason we said at some point is because we know for sure it came in Japan first, and then it was released in other regions after that. But I dig it. For all the games we've played so far, that's top tier for handhelds. I'm even willing to go all the way 4.5 because the Pac-Man we played on Tomytronic, it was because they were trying to keep it just like Pac-Man, having the direction face one way, it also felt a little slower on how you moved around. This one worked much better, and especially for the maze, it was simple enough. Wow, really? $100? That ain't too bad. All right, so Packri Monster. I'm gonna say for all the handhelds we've seen, we were giving top ratings for the Galaxian style handhelds, which were playing really well. This one is one of the best ones you could play. I'm gonna go full on 5 stars. If you think of all the handhelds, it is a standalone handheld, but it's still one of the best you could play in 1981. Packri Monster, awesome. All right, so after Packri Monster, let's see what's next. From one handheld to another, this is the Entex Select-A-Game system. There it is over on the left side. This is the other handheld that had interchangeable cartridges along with Milton Bradley Microvision. And this is Pac-Man 2. This is another game that's really difficult to come by. And from all the games we've seen up to this point, this is another one that we cannot run. So all we got is, I got some video footage. And we're only able to play it as a video instead of the checking out the game itself. And there you go. So this is what Pac-Man 2, and it's not like a sequel. It just means that Entex made a standalone handheld called Pac-Man, and this one was the sequel, but well, not the sequel. It's available to be played on the Entex Select-A-Game, which you had a cartridge you popped in the bottom. But there it is. It's a much larger map, more reminiscent to what you'd play if you had Pac-Man in the arcade. So it has the same idea, but notice that it's doing the same thing the Tomytronic handheld did. Pac-Man's only facing one direction, but there's no stipulation on how you eat things. You just move over the dot, and it doesn't matter which direction you're going. Tomytronic, you had to be sure that Pac-Man was only eating when he went to the left for some reason. But they got it right here. Just move Pac-Man around, collect all the dots, and then you do have even the power pellets here. But it's another system that is so rare, so obscure. But cool that we can get at least an idea of what it looks like. So this is another one that's way ahead of anything else we played, and especially since it's on a system that is... you can switch the cartridges out and play. So I'm going to go for, again, a really high marks on this one for all handhelds we've seen up to this point. 4.5 stars for Pac-Man 2. Not the sequel to Pac-Man, but a very excellent maze game that you can have in the palm of your, well, I don't know, the Select-A-Game really isn't the palm of your hand. It's meant to be played with 2 people as well. So you can see they have it's either side with controls using 1, 4, and 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the numbers that you use for like the directional pad. But it's pretty large. But even still, an exceptional handheld considering everything else. All right, after that one, let's go to our next one. Our next game is The Beast. This is the biggest handheld, or one of the biggest handhelds, advertised heavily in North America for the time. This is Pac-Man by Coleco, the tabletop or stand-up handheld. This is the very first one to be released, and then there's other ones we're going to be checking out in 1982. So this is Pac-Man for the handheld Coleco. Take a look at the advertisement flyer or advertisement for this one.
Mr. Arcade, I need help. My husband won't come home.
Pac-Man, I can help.
Yes, Mr. Arcade.
Get him, Pac-Man! Stand back. This is the official tabletop version of Midway's Pac-Man.
It looks the same.
And it plays the same. Monsters, power capsule sounds, even
I don't know about that.
Score. And best of all,
You can take Pac-Man home.
Official Midway Pac-Man for 1 or 2 players. The arcade game you can take home with you from Coleco.
That's right. I got a lot of weird things about the commercial, though. First of all, who has ever played Pac-Man and impersonated Pac-Man by eating the pellets like that? Nobody. Nobody does. And the second thing is, if you got a husband who is stuck in the arcade, I don't think bringing it home is going to solve any problems. I think that woman is just miserably unhappy when she goes back home. But that was the idea. Coleco was trying to make it seem like you're carrying an arcade cabinet, a tiny size one home, and it was the exact same thing. Now, they showed you gameplay in this ad, but there are some ads where you don't see the gameplay. Yeah, right? I don't think so. If he's already munching or pretending to munch on power pellets, I don't think you want to take him home. Oh, man. All right, so let's take a look at the box for Pac-Man. The official Pac-Man. That's right, by Coleco. 1 or 2 players, and that would be the biggest draw and what sets this one apart. It is a 2-player simultaneous Pac-Man game. It plays and sounds and scores like the real Pac-Man arcade game. Well, we'll see about that. We also have the advertisement flyer. Yes, these are for arcade games you can take home. This one has Galaxian and Pac-Man. The first one to be released was Pac-Man, and it's really hard to pin down exactly the release for this one. In 1982, we're going to see the release of the rest of the tabletop ones, but I know for sure at least sometime by the end of 1981 was when Pac-Man came out. You can see they got, for Pac-Man, 2 skill levels. You can record your best score. You have demonstration mode. It does like an attract mode like it does in the arcade. And then, and it's available for shipment now. And there's the system. So all the system itself does resemble an arcade cabinet. The display, though, is kind of small. It's still using the vacuum fluorescent display. It really pops, looks nice, but it is smaller, tinier than what you'd expect, because the handheld itself is a tabletop, and it looks like it'd be something bigger, but no, it's just like as you see there. And we have a manual for this one too. So if you have trouble playing your Pac-Man Coleco, just consult the manual. Yes, instruction and game manual. Now this is pretty cool because I didn't know this until I got the manual. The game is 3 games in one. It's Pac-Man, head-to-head Pac-Man, and Eat and Run, which is a game mode that this is the first time it's ever been introduced, and you end up seeing it later with other Pac-Mans, which is kind of cool. So if you scroll down through this requires 4 C alkaline batteries. Yes, you need 4 C batteries for this system to work. And does it say what the life of this system is? I don't think it does here. But when you play the Pac-Man mode, that's for 1 player. It's just like in the arcade, it says. You play Midway's Pac-Man, Electronic Tabletop by Coleco. You're in control of Pac-Man. Move through the maze. You have 4 monsters, hungry monsters chasing you. When you eat one of the 4 power capsules, they become energized, and for a short time, Pac-Man can chase the monsters and eat them. And if you get all of them and the 4th one, you get 10,000 points. And it even remembers your best score achieved since it was turned on. When the batteries, though, run out, the score goes away. So make sure you conserve your score in that time. Yeah, this one was so big and heavily advertised. When I looked up the advertisement for this game, there's more than 1 advertisement for these tabletops. So they spent a lot of money on marketing, and they spent a lot of money on these to get these systems out. So our other game mode is head-to-head Pac-Man for 2 people, and that's where this one sets aside the other ones we've seen by Tomy and by Bandai. You can have 2 people at the same time. You're on the screen as 2 Pac-Mans moving around simultaneously. Now, for a handheld, it's not like the first time we've seen a 2-player game on a handheld. It's very rare. It's probably the 3rd one, but to do it with Pac-Man is awesome. It's huge. And then the last game mode is Eat and Run. This is 1 player. This one you just grab 1 of the 4 capsules and get back to the base before the monsters eat you. So there's not a bunch of dots all over. You just pick up 4 different capsules around the outside. Then after you get the 4, you move back to the center, and then you won. The problem is the base gate opens and shuts, but you'll never know when. And the monsters are hot on your trail. How long does Pac-Man stay in the maze? Only you can decide. So there's the controls, how it plays, the score display, how many Pac-Man you have remaining, the escape tunnel, which we keep hearing different things depending on what version of the handheld it is. Is it a warp? Is it escape tunnel? But it's just like in the arcade. You go from one side, warp around to the, or flip around to the other. I'm going to zoom in on this. They're showing you what a power capsule is, but I guess the scan of the manual isn't picking it up, so it's not super helpful there. But you can see the skill switch. They have a switch like the Tomytronic one. You can switch it back and forth. Then you have the 2 control sticks on the side. And then the batteries. Oh man, the batteries. C batteries. Back in 1981, you still needed C batteries. I feel like nowadays we're only using AA and AAA. So if you want to see Pac-Man demonstrate, you can try yourself, move the skill 1 switch to either 1 or 2, and then push left control stick to demo. After you enjoy the show, watch closely, you can play an actual game, you can end the demo and select another game. And so they do the attract mode like in the arcade. Then the object of the game is, it's Pac-Man. I don't think we need to go over that. But the screen, when you zoom in for everything, kind of shows you what to expect. You got the score, how many Pac-Man you have left, and then on the screen itself, I don't know why they chose to do this. It looks like the ghosts are Pac-Man with balls. I don't know if you zoom in, look, it's like, why are there 2 balls below Pac-Man? They kind of resemble the ghosts. They're almost close to the Packri Monster ghosts. I don't know why they decided to do that. Probably because of the limitations of the vacuum fluorescent display. Possibly, yeah. And then there's the example of the power capsules. And then when you're ready to go, you push the left control stick to move Pac-Man. And it's interesting because you have the skill switch. Once you select anything on the skill switch, then you use the joystick to select which game you want to play. So there's not like a start button like on the other handhelds or on the arcade. All right, so then they give you different steps of how to play Pac-Man. Look at that, tips and tricks on how to play Pac-Man. I don't believe we need those, but cool that it has it in the manual. And we're not even halfway through the manual, by the way. This one is an extensive manual for a handheld. Heavily marketed, and you can tell they spent a lot of time on this, making sure that it was primo. And you can see the manual is giving us way too much that we need to. How the monsters move and attack. When old monsters never die. Pac-Man eats the monster reappears in the start position, just like Pac-Man. So if you're familiar with the arcade, I think you got the idea. What I'd like to know is when they break down the other game modes. And there's the scoring chart. Got to have that in 1981. Here we go. Okay, so head-to-head Pac-Man. This is the exact same game, just you're playing with a friend. They say compete against a friend. You could think of it like competitive. You work together to get the maze finished, but I guess you're getting to see who has the highest score. Maybe that's the competitive part of it. Gameplay is the same as Pac-Man, except it's for 2 players. You can do cutthroat, competitive play, Pac-Man. Just like in Pac-Man, the Pac-Men in head-to-head Pac-Man eat dots as they go. 2 people even occupy the same space at the same time. And then when Pac-Man's eaten by a monster, the round continues until the other Pac-Man is eaten. Oh, so there is competitive. It's definitely competitive. Pac-Man has 3 Pac-Men. The game ends when both players have used all their Pac-Men. So that means whenever someone gets a power pellet, they can eat the other person. That's why it's competitive. And then, yeah, game ends when both players have used all their Pac-Men and died. So I guess it would be a little difficult to do cooperative play unless you separated either side of the maze. And then finally, the eat and run mode is just grabbing the capsule. So you can see on the map here, they have the different dots. You just pick up 4 dots around the maze and then try to get back in. So there's no power pellet. It's just you're dodging the ghosts, picking the dots up, then coming back to the center. And the center room, I think, moves, yeah, the door or the gate moves back and forth. So you can't go in all the time. A successful run occurs when Pac-Man grabs at least 1 capsule and returns to base. When Pac-Man returns to base, he scores points, and all the capsules reappear in their original positions. For successful runs, after each round, the game speeds up and all capsules are worth more. The process continues for the first 4 rounds. You get 3 Pac-Men per game, and not including the one in the maze. The game ends when all your Pac-Men are eaten, and then you start over again. And we still have a manual. What's going on? What else is next? The scoring chart shows all the different rounds. So it does get 5 different rounds, but it's the same maze. They just make it harder and harder. And then, battery drain. If the game fails to operate after prolonged play, replace those batteries. And then how to care for the game. Now, a lot of these systems, people have left the batteries in them, and I've experienced the acid, and it's terrible that the system gets messed up. But you can clean them. It does take a little bit of time, but it's too bad that it happens in the first place. But there you go. That's the Coleco manual for the handheld Pac-Man. Amazing. And then, at long last, we finally get to play Pac-Man, the Coleco version, released at some point in 1981. And so I zoomed this in a little bit. I just had a physical scan of the handheld, and then this is a very recent emulator because MAME hasn't been really doing it super well. This is the best one I could get. But as soon as you're ready, if you want to see what the... there we go. You want to see the first mode? This is like the demo mode. But if you've ever seen the handheld yourself, and you've turned it on, the big thing you remember about the game is the sirens. As you're playing the game, it sounds like fire sirens are going off. So if you're around anybody, they know you're playing Pac-Man by Coleco. It gets loud and the sirens go on. There it is. Now for this, the gameplay, it's kind of similar to the one we showed on the Entex Select a Game. It doesn't really matter which way you face, but Pac-Man is always facing to the left still. But there's no stipulation on how you eat the dots. So if you wanted to, let's go and get some game mode in. So I'm going to jump in and play the 1-player mode. Oh, I'm sorry, I hit the 2-player on accident. So we have 2 players moving at the same time, so I'm controlling both at the same time. There's 2 Pac-Mans on the screen at once. We both can pick up power pellets. We both can move around the screen at the same time. And then now that we got a power pellet, you can get the ghost. The sound effects, though, what I remember most about playing this myself is whenever the battery starts to drain, the siren sound starts to wane. And even sometimes when you put new batteries in, it feels like the sound doesn't work correctly, or it's running out of batteries. So the one thing I remember is it always sounded like the game was running out of juice whenever I would play the game. And you can hear it now, even with the simulator. And then when the sirens turn off, you can actually hear some of the sound effects, but it is missing the fruit. We only saw the fruit in the Tomytronic version. And there goes the sirens again. And it sounds like it's creeping along. And I think that's the last life of, yep, that's the last life of one player. And then we got, yep, they closed in on the second player. Second player is done. And it is game over. That's a good point, too. It was also very loud. Before I did the stream, I had to lower the volume because I knew that it would blow people's ears off. So this is not as loud as it was before, but it is a very loud handheld. Definitely. All right, so going in again, I would say for all the handhelds we played, it's still really impressive. And kind of interesting that we are playing the games that were released at some point in 1981 in alphabetical order, and we came across all these handhelds in a row. So we're getting to see the Pac-Man or Maze handhelds the very first time you could play it this way, and see the difference of them. Now the sound effects, it's really rough. That would be the biggest draw against this one. The pros for this, though, are the two-player mode, the different game mode, because you're not even just playing the same Pac-Man. You can play normal Pac-Man, but then you can also play the pick up the dots and get to the center, which is a nice touch. They didn't have to do that. They could have just made Pac-Man that you could play portably. Or take it home. If your husband has a terrible Pac-Man problem and can't leave the arcade. Did they think the arcades were like gambling and slot machines or something back in 1981? I'm going to purposely die now and check out the other one. Game over. Oh no, it kept going. Never mind. Not game over. Gotta lose more lives. There, game over. Now let's check out the other game mode. So this one, oh, I think I just pushed the first player. Yeah, so this is the normal first player. So if you're playing the one-player mode, this is what it would look like. Picking the dots around the outside, and you have the pellets to pick out too. So let me die on this one. We do that pretty good on chronological gaming. It shouldn't take too long. But very bizarre how the ghosts have an outline, but it's just an outline of Pac-Man. There's only so many things, though, I can gripe about this because of all the other handhelds. It's the very first time we've had a game that looks like this as a maze game, at least. It's amazing. Oh, yeah, for this one, I am not able to. Yeah, it's a tiny screen. I'm just going to give a quick shout-out of the last game mode. I actually thought about moving it in closer because of how small it is, but I did want everyone to see when you have the screen, you would have to get really close to play. It's pretty small on the system itself. So all you do for this game mode is you just go around, pick the dots up. After you get all 4 dots, then you move yourself to the center, and then you move to the next level. So you can see the gates in the center open and close, but they don't stay open the whole time. But man, oh man, those sound effects. The way that it is blaring like a siren. I wonder if that's what drained the battery the most. All right, so that was Pac-Man for Coleco. At long last. Been really looking forward to this one. And for all the handhelds we've seen up to this point, I was willing to go all the way 5. It does have the downfall of the sound effects and the ghost animation, but I mean, you can't fault the game modes. And it's the handheld that's a tabletop that looks like an arcade game. So I'm going to go full on 5 stars. If anyone in the chat wants to throw in their 2 cents or ratings. I would consider this one of the best handhelds you could play in 1981. And if you think about the other handhelds with interchangeable cartridges, we didn't get anything that was even remotely close to a maze game or had this much control of a character. There's only one other I can think of on the Milton Bradley Microvision that allowed you to move around the screen to hunt a different dot, but you were just playing as a dot on the screen. So, oh yeah, it's a good point. Very loud. That's a big draw. Oh, I'll go 5 stars. Of all the games you can play up to this point, for handhelds, it is top tier. One of the best you could play. All right, so with that, let's press forward and see what our next game is after Pac-Man. All right, it's a handheld kind of night. Our next game is the newest Time and Fun. This is Pancake from VTech. Let's take a look at the artwork for Pancake. This is the Game & Watch ripoff, basically. Time and Fun. And from the back of the box, you can see this was the release that was made in Hong Kong, but released in Europe with different languages around there. But the design is very similar to Game & Watch, just 2 buttons on either side. We've seen a few of these VTech ones. This one is Pancake. You know it's 1981 when the games all have one word. You don't need any more description. So here we go. Let's put in the palm of our hand another handheld. This one we're more accustomed to with the Game & Watch theme. So what we'll do first is put the time on. Looks like it's reading the actual time. That's awesome. It's taking the computer clock, I guess. All right, so let's push Game A. And we're in, playing Pancake. It's a formula we're so familiar with. With all the Game & Watch games we played, it's the exact same idea. VTech's trying to cash in on that. But very charming. Look at the animation on the side. The chef's making pancakes. For some reason, we have to flip them over to the guy. I don't know why we just don't carry them, but you know, we have to if it's a Time and Fun game, I guess. Yeah, this one is playing really close to Egg, which we played on Nintendo Game & Watch, or Wolf. You take something from one side of the screen, go to the other side, or Fire. It's the same. It's the same concept. So can't really say they're doing anything new, but just think about the cost difference between this and other handhelds. You're more likely to get this as a stocking stuffer on Christmas, or more likely to get this as a gift as a kid in a store, and then take it, play it a little bit, and then put it down, and then someone else might play it. But it's not really giving you hours and hours of enjoyment or longevity. It's more of just a really fun time waster. And you can see we push in the buttons. It just has 2 buttons, left and right. This is ripping off the Game & Watch, which hasn't, Gunpei Yokoi hasn't made the cross directional pad yet. And that's going to happen in 1982. So whenever we get to those systems, then people are going to start ripping off that control scheme and get sued because they patented the hell out of that one. But this one, the control is pretty simple. It's just 2 buttons. And then they just add more and more pancakes. You got to flip them over to the guy on the left side. Easy peasy. I'm going to see what happens if I miss one. Yep, they drop on the floor, and then they keep track in the top right corner. Yeah, so it's very similar to what we've seen on handhelds. No, we get more than 3? Okay, usually it's 3 drops and you're out. 4. Okay, we get 5 drops. I'm just a terrible waiter. There you go, and that's Pancake. For all the handhelds we've seen up to this point, it is... I'm starting to give these simple ones, the ripoffs, subpar. So it's just below average. 2.5 stars, considering all the other handhelds you could play, or what you could play at the time, too. So that's Pancake. Let's see what our next game is after Pancake. We're next going to the arcades, and this is Panther. Let's take a look at Panther and see what Panther's all about, starting with the artwork. This is by IRIM, another fantastic developer. This exciting take-ground warfare game is a challenge to players' skill on how well they defend their city with a missile launcher. And we flip over the advertisement flyer. It explains how to play the game. Tanks attack and move toward the city, crossing over the river and forest. Cannon shots fire from the tanks and can't damage the city. Missiles are ineffective when tanks enter the river or forest. The missile launcher is controlled by the operation lever. The traveling distance of missiles is gauged by the up and down lever. Then the firing button is pressed. Oh, okay, so it's tactical. And then tanks are divided into 2 tread parts, A and C, and the body B. Missile hits A or C and only decreases their speed. The tank is completely destroyed if only the direct hit is made on the B part. Oh, that's really cool. Okay, so then if tanks aren't destroyed, they invade the city and parts of the city are destroyed. When there's other tanks destroyed and only 3 remain, the tanks retreat and a zigzag moving Panther tack appears. A Panther tank appears. So we have a boss. The boss tank is called the Panther. Only a direct hit can destroy the King Panther tank. When a King Panther is destroyed, a new screen pattern appears. As new patterns appear, number of tanks increases. So it's like the arcade games we've seen at the time. They just keep getting more and more difficult. And you can see we got point score. I love the advertisement flyer when they tell you how to play. Nice. So there's our arcade cabinet. Check it out. Pretty simple artwork, but the control panel is what's the most interesting. Do we get to zoom in on that? We do not. So if you look at the control panel, it has a lever that you move, and that's what you're using to control the range of your shot. And then you push a button to fire the shot. So that's the big difference between this and other arcade cabinets is that lever. And there's just an example of the screenshot. All right, so let's go to the arcades. Pop some quarters into Panther, released at some point in 1981 by IRIM. Already gets average for the art. All right. So here we go. This is Panther. And this one's kind of zoomed out, showing you the artwork around the outside. I'll do a little bit here, but you can see for the attract mode, the way it works is you first think it's a normal shooter like Space Invaders. You move left and right and fire, but it's not that. The only other games we've seen do this is sub-simulation games. You're in a submarine and have to shoot something at a certain distance, but now it's doing it from a tank. It's essentially the same idea, but you get to control it with a lever. So again, I cannot emphasize this enough. On the show, I can't give you the arcade cabinet and be there and have you play it. If you pretend it's 1981 and you're experiencing this with holding the lever and then pushing it, you'll understand it, because it's similar to taking the dial on a trackball, not a trackball, on a paddle, but instead of making the paddle turn like this, it's flipping it so that the paddle's doing this control scheme. It's kind of difficult to explain, but you got a lot of control over how you fire your shots. All right, let's do a little bit from this view so you can see what it's like. Let's put a coin in and push and start. All right, so if you look on the left and right side, I have a gauge that can move left and right. It's just like playing with a paddle control, really fine-tuned, and then I move left and right. I can move the tank, and what you do is you use that gauge to fire a shot, and you have to base the shot on where you think the tank will be next. So you can see right there, I got the left side. Looks like he slowed down, but I want to be able to get him right there. There we go. And you got to make a few direct hits. Oh, we got another one. He's blitzing. He's blitzing. So I slowed him down, and you can see the cities start lighting up whenever you're getting close to be destroyed by a tank. Because I think the shots that the tanks shoot only can hit your tank, but the tanks themselves are the ones that will destroy the city. All right, everybody on the same page now. You got this really fine-tuned job where you can move the lever back and forth and then shoot your bullet. Now, this would be really cool if we had this for one of the sub games. Let me zoom this in. We can get a better view of the game itself. Let's get rid of that. There we go. All right, we're in. Another coin going in. Let's play some Panther in the arcades. All right, so you start off with you have to still avoid the shots, but then you have to aim and fire. So I slowed that one down. That should hold him for a little bit. Let's go for this guy next. You have to aim and fire where you think they're going to be next. Okay, slowed him down. So let's go ahead and shoot this guy next. And I really enjoyed when we played the naval simulation games that did this. But this is pretty cool, having this amount of control over your shots of how far they go. It is an arcade game that doesn't play like an arcade game. It plays more like a strategy game. Oh, I don't know. Yeah, he got me. And if they come in kamikaze, you got to get out of the way. But you're essentially just going as far as you can, either before you lose lives or the whole city gets destroyed. You are #1 today. Oh, that's all I need. Thanks. Thanks, arcade game. You made me feel so good. All right, let's put a coin in. Push and start again. And let's go. Left and right, and then going, nope, see, bad shot. It's all about that timing. Okay, slowed him down. Let's just finish him off. It allows me to shoot more than one bullet, too. You think with the graphics that look like this, I think I can only do one at a time, like I'm playing on Space Invaders or something. And so I'm just going to let that city I didn't like anyway, I'm just going to let it blow up. And all the ones over there, make a few good shots here. Oh, and whenever they go in the green, or if they go across a river, then they don't get damaged. So you can see they're like hiding behind the trees. And you really got to pump that shot, because you can shoot more than one at a time. No, get him quick. Okay, got him there. And if you have a few lives left, I think, or is that the... Okay, got another one. Nope, there it is. Game over. But you are number 1 today. Thanks, Panther. All right, so for Panther, this one is unique with the control scheme, but not really enough to push it over the top. I'd still give this, I mean, think about it. It's 1981. I'm thinking of all the really amazing games we've seen. Centipede, the ones that are louder, have better sound effects. Not that louder makes it better, but there's not enough to really draw you in. If this was an arcade that had all the other systems like Donkey Kong we played, it's not really enough to push it over the top. The control scheme is different, but I'm going to say it's still average. It's still a 3-star game, a perfectly average arcade game for the time. Not enough to really push it into something better or more than that. All right, so after Panther, let's see what our next game is. Our next one's also in the arcades. This is Percussor, or The Percussor. Does this mean there's a bunch of profanity that's going to be spouted at us? Please be prepared for profanity if the game just starts yelling at us. We have seen video games talk to us, so it might happen. So there's the advertisement flyer. Doesn't look... Oh, it is look like a one from Orca. The Percussor. And for controls, looks like we can move around freely. We have fire and bomb to shoot. And that's it. No manual, nothing else. So we're just going to go up to the system and see what it's like. This is the Percussor, released by Orca at some point in 1981. Now, we couldn't pin down these release dates for these arcade games, and if you were in an arcade that had everything that we've played up to this point, I'm just think of a Frogger, Centipede, Galaga, Donkey Kong. We've had all these major arcade games. For something like this, are you really going to put your quarters into these other games? And we don't know when they were released either. They could have been released early in 1981 or in the summer, and it's hard to pin these down. Maybe it has percussion in the game. I don't know what Orca's thinking with the name. All right, we saw the attract mode. Looks like a horizontally scrolling, maybe. Let's put a coin in and play some Percussor. Number of objects, enemy base. When you get to something. Oh, yeah, we do a loop-de-loop. Nice. Okay, interesting. So the screen is not scrolling. I'm on one screen, and I have a shot, and I have a missile I can fire. Looks like one missile at a time, but several bullets at once. But control scheme's so weird. This one is relative controls. If I move up, the ship goes up. If I move down, the ship goes down. So I'm just, I literally can just move it all the way around the sides. And if you can hear the background music, we're hearing yet again Night on Bald Mountain in a video game. I think this is the 3rd time we've seen a video game use that public domain music. I just purposely ran into him. Every 20,000 points, you get a new fighter. Oh, 10,000, okay. So we have a speed, altimeter, and fuel. I don't know how I get more fuel, though. Let's see if I shoot up anything down here. Nope, I just blew myself up. But I believe this game is going to give us more screens because the attract mode was scrolling horizontally, and this one's just fixed. I'm staying on one screen, flying around shooting things. This game does make me feel like we're getting closer and closer to a game called Time Pilot. A very popular arcade game that allows this kind of freedom of movement. But we already saw another game called Bosconian that did that. This one, though, is... Oh, I forgot to get my missiles. Oh, am I getting points for blowing stuff up? Oh, nice. So I'm not protecting anything down here. We're just going... We'll just blow everything up. If it's in the way, blow it up. Alright, I don't know if I was doing something good or bad, but I'm so used to shooting everything that moves for points that it didn't say I got negative points for it. Let's see. No, I'm getting points for it, so I'll take it. but fuel doesn't look good. And hearing Night on Bald Mountain repeat in the background just makes me want to blow more things up. I want to keep going to see if there's more. I feel like it should be another screen or something else we'll see, but so far what you see is this is it. A single screen that goes, and that's about it. All right, well, there you go. For the history books, that was the Percussor. Released in the arcade. I can see why it was forgotten, because it's really not too super impressive. I'm going to say subpar, considering everything else we've seen for the time. 2.5 stars. Anybody in the chat want to throw anything out for Percussor? Because I think it's... Thanks for that one, Pretty 117. Oh, you're saying 3 even. Okay. I'll still say sub, just because I've seen so many better arcade games than this. Like, even a Mega Race was a fantastic arcade game, even though it wasn't like a 5-star game. We've seen so many that are much better than this. If I got a handful of quarters, am I likely to put them in this? I'd say no. So I'm going to do 2.5 stars, considering everything else we've seen up to this point. It does control. It actually has a little jerky for the controls. It's not super smooth. Bosconian has the same control style and did a much better job with it. All right, so that was the Percussor. And it is now the end of our evening this evening, but man, oh man, we got more games to play for 1981. We're now in the P's, finishing up the rest of the releases we couldn't pin down an exact release date for. We're going to press forward, continuing those, and like I always say, you got to play Pac-Man as a handheld. Hey everybody, thanks for checking out the channel and joining me on my quest to play every single video game in order of release. We'll be streaming live every weekday at 9 p.m. Central, so join us and let us know if we miss any games along the way. This video would not be possible without RetroArch and Launchbox. Please tell your friends there's some crazy guy out there trying to play every single video game. You can always check out Chronologically Gaming on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Chronologically Gaming is the name to look for. We will catch you next time.